Part 11. The Original Vampire. Author, Logo Busroot. Chapter 101. Chapter 101. Do you need a semi-elf female slave? Our Chamber of Commerce has just been tuned recently, and the quality is particularly good. Do you want to see it? As soon as Colin walked to the door of the Zintai Sub-Chamber of Commerce, he was entangled by a sales guy. I'm here to find someone. Who are you looking for? A businessman named Sith, do you know? This, I don't know what happened to us to grow. Colin browed his eyebrows, but he did not expect that he had just entered the slave market, and the first chamber of commerce he met had someone who was looking for. Moreover, this guy introduced by Prince Akamoto is actually the chairman of a large-scale chamber of commerce. Seeing that the salesman looked alert, Colin took out the token given by Akamoto. The salesman took the badge, but the skepticism on his face still did not fade away. Obviously he didn't know this token. Please wait, I will go in and ask you. It didn't take long for the salesman to return again, and behind a thin middle-aged semi-elf man behind him. Is it Master Angelier? Yes, are you? I despise Sith. Prince Akamoto has told me what happened. Hurry up, please enter. Colin nodded and followed Sis into the Fengzinza Chamber of Commerce. Through the lively front hall, Sis led Colin to a quiet courtyard. The courtyard was covered with rose flowers, and the breeze blows, and the elegant floral fragrance comes. There is a gazebo in the middle of the flower. Sis took a Colin to sit in the gazebo and asked respectfully, Master Viscount, what do you want to drink? Cafe. A servant immediately brought 2 marks, and the coffee inside was still hot. Sis waved his hand, and the servant immediately retreated, leaving here to Colin and Sith. Welcome to Union City, respect the Viscount angle, if you need any need here, please be instructed. Colin took a sip of coffee. Then I didn't have a settlement with the Sith, and asked straightly, tell me about the major forces of Union City's major forces. Sis is holding haha, I don't know what forces you are asking, I have been in business for decades, and I know the power of the semi-elf business. I'm talking about political forces. Colin turned his eyes, interrupted this deliberate silly semi-elf merchant. Master Viscount, if political forces, how can I know? How much can a little businessman know? Colin looked at Sis' eyes, and then pointed to the rose flowers in the courtyard, and said lightly, these are blood roses. Yes, if Master Viscount likes, I can send you a batch. I have no interest in flowers. Colin shook his head and laughed. However, I heard that Queen Aisha's favorite flower is the blood rose. Yes, this entire Silver Moon City knows. Then you tell me about Queen Aisha. Okay, this time, Sith didn't push it off again. Queen Aisha was born in the Miller family, the youngest daughter of Miller, Duke of the Elf Prime Minister Miller. Colin suddenly thought of the semi-elf at the gate of the city. Yes, Sith nodded and continued. Queen Aisha was married to the royal family 3 years ago. 3 years ago at this time, Clint was alert. He suddenly thought that the plan to eliminate the threat of North and abroad was not 3 years ago. Is this coincidence? Still, Sissy's narrative is still continuing, because His Majesty Wang is old after all, he can't let the queen pregnant with children, so a year ago, he chose a young man from the Miller family to become the adopted son, that is, the second Prince Tupe. Wait, Colin immediately interrupted, you mean, Prince Tupe was selected from the children of the Miller family, not the semi-elf royal family, the family. Yes, Sith nodded to confirm. Colin sneered. What do this Miller family want to do? The queen is from their family, and even the king's adopted son is their family. Even if Tupe has now changed his surname Meadwin, did the old king really recognize this foreign blood? Duke Miller wants to play the trick of dove occupying the nest? What about William? Colin asked again. Prince William is the biological son of Her Majesty the King. Which family of the last queen? The Root family. A majestic face flashed in Colin's mind. At the wind feast last night, there was no Duke Lud. The current Duke of Ludder was the last queen, Colin asked again. Younger brother. What court positions do Duke Luther hold? Duke Luther is the commander of the Union Guard. Colin nodded and probably figured out the political status of the semi-elf kingdom. In his opinion, the high-level forces of this country are mainly divided into two factions. The second princes with the Queen, Prince Tupe, the Duke of Miller, and the princes with the King, Prince William and Duke of Ludder as the core. However, now it seems that the princes faction obviously occupies the upper hand. After all, the prince's inheritance position was before Prince Tupe, and the king helped him. In addition, the most elite army of the kingdom was held in his hands of Duke Lud. No wonder Prince Tupe is going to the north to ask for marrying Vera. If there is no foreign forces to help each other, Prince Tupe now can't fight his brother at all. So, how did the Duke of St. Hilder plan to push the disadvantaged Prince Tupe to the throne, thereby controlling the semi-elf kingdom and getting the key to entering the East? What about the East? They will definitely not sit at the control of the semi-elf kingdom into the north. How to deal with it? And this Sith? Of course, Colin does not believe that this guy is a simple businessman. I do know what role is they going to play in the competition of Union City? And Colin himself. I am afraid that it is just a chess piece on this intricate board. But in order to prevent Vera from marrying the semi-elf prince, Colin felt that he had to be a chess player. In the previous journey, he had already outlined a plan. However, he needs a breakthrough. Are you a Cavaliers? Colin licked his sharp tiger teeth and asked suddenly. Sis was obviously stunned, obviously that Colin would ask himself such a question. You laughed. I am a little businessman, how can I be eligible to accept baptism and become a noble knight? Colin was a little disappointed, and asked, among the semi-elf royal family members, there should be a lot of knights. Of course, serving the Lord of Guanghui is the wish of every semi-elf noble. This is the fact. Although there is also a Church of the Goddess of Destiny in Union City, under the cover of the strong forces of the glorious empire, the more lively Church of the Glory Lord. The first occupation choice of the semi-elf aristocracy is naturally a knight, not a ranger. Her Majesty the King was a fourth-order knight, His Royal Highness, 2 princes, both knights, and Duke Lud. When I heard the prominent names emerging from Sith's mouth, Colin smiled excitedly. Okay, let's talk about it today. I still have something to leave first. Okay, welcome to visit at any time, I will give you out. The two walked all the way. When they arrived at the entrance of the Chamber of Commerce, they met a team of all armed guards on the face. Colin looked at the familiar face of the leader and surprised. Prince William. This chapter is finished. The Original Vampire. Author, Logo Busroot. Chapter 102. Chapter 102. Angle line, why are you here? Colin stunned, and then said, let's take a look at the semi-elf female slave. So, Prince William suddenly showed an ambiguous smile that a man knew. Then you should find me, the best semi-elf female slaves in Union City are there. Colin blinked and felt that the big prince was a bit, It's okay, I just stroll around, and I don't have to buy it. Colin quickly opened the topic, I don't know you come here. Let me check this culprit, said Prince William. We received a report, this Chamber of Commerce has tax evasion. Unjustly, His Royal Highness, Sis suddenly cried, didn't you just come to check it some time ago? Do you know if you can check it? Prince William ignored Sissy and waved his hand behind him. Suddenly, a team of semi-elf guards like a wolf like a tiger rushed up, and settled Sis to walk into the Chamber of Commerce. Sorry, the Viscounts, the business duties, I'm afraid I can't accompany you. It's okay, you are busy with you, I will stroll casually. Colin was ready to bid farewell to Prince William, but he took the pace. He suddenly flashed and turned back. His Royal Highness, I may have some clues about this Fabrichouse Chamber of Commerce. Oh, Prince William stopped. However, this is not a clue about tax evasion. It's okay, you talk about it. Prince William's eyes lighted up, but even more excited. Seeing this reaction of the other party, Colin immediately realized that the Hyacroangza Chamber of Commerce may have been stared at by the Medin family. What, tax evasion is just an excuse for searching? I just saw a sneaky troll in it, so I doubt that this Chamber of Commerce may collude with the giant demon empire. Colin sold Akamoto without psychological burden. He felt that the Sith should be a dark sun buried in the semi-elf kingdom. It is likely that he wanted to take advantage of the fisherman's advantage of the fisherman. Colin, of course, don't want to make the trolls as expected. Therefore, let Prince William find out the bottom of this Sith. By the way, the water of Union City also stirred more muddy. This is convenient for him to touch the fish in muddy water. It turns out, Prince William suddenly realized, and felt that he finally understood why his father had to check the Chamber of Commerce. Haha, Angle Viscount, thank you very much for the clues you provided. I must thank you. Oh right, don't you want to buy a semi-elf female slave? I will give you the best female slave to you. No, no, you are so polite. Farewell to Prince William, who was too enthusiastic, returned to the palace alone. Vera's wedding was half a month later, so he was doing nothing at this moment. I wanted to go to Vera to talk about life, but went to halfway. After all, this is the palace of half-elf, not Hongfeng Manor. The guards of the Union Guard in the palace are unable to be supported. If they are seen by people, it will be troublesome. As a result, Colin began to walk randomly in the palace. Walking, he suddenly smelled a familiar fragrance. Following the aroma, Colin walked into an open-air garden. The blood rose of the garden was blooming, as if a flame of the ocean. Colin closer to one and looked at it carefully. It seemed to want to distinguish whether these blood roses had the same species as the blood roses that he had seen in the capital Chamber of Commerce before. Angle liner. An elegant and slightly magnetic sound suddenly sounded. Colin was startled, and turned to see Queen Aisha squatting in the flowers. She was wearing a fiery long skirt and perfectly incorporated into the blood rose. No wonder Colin didn't notice her existence before. His Royal Highness, sorry, I didn't see you when I came in before. Queen Aisha waved his hand to signal that Colin would not have to be more courteous. She walked slowly towards Colin, with a charming smile on her beautiful face. Violet also likes blood roses. Colin also stood upright, but bowed his head slightly to avoid the Queen's eyes. Yes, after all, no one dislikes good things. Then do you know, the most beautiful blood rose flowers need to be poured out with blood. During the speech, Queen Aisha had come to Colin. The faint fragrance kept drilling into the Colin's nose, moving his heartstrings. Really, no wonder it is called blood rose. Colin rubbed his itchy nose and said with a smile. Queen Aisha took off a blood rose at hand, smelled it on the tip of his nose, and nodded, yes, and, the more powerful the blood of the strong professional, the more beautiful the blood rose was poured out. Colin moved. Secretly it was not like me. Maybe you can add blood roses to the new family batch. Just as the Colin thoughts, Queen Alice had inserted the blood rose to the hair ends, and then crooked his head to Colin, and asked slightly abruptly. Am I pretty? Colin, stunned, turned to look at Queen Aisha, who showed a little bit of coquettish colors, and nodded, of course. But at the same time, I couldn't help but be vigilant. Queen Aisha smiled, as if a white young girl who was praised by her lover. I heard that in the Lion Roar, you also proposed to Miss Villa, right? Yes. Hey, I can't get the pain of my beloved, and I have tasted it. The Matahari of Queen Aisha was pity in the eyes, as if he really suffered the same feeling for Colin. Colin looked up, looking at the eyes of the beautiful queen, and suddenly laughed. His Royal Highness laughed. Aren't you married your beloved? Do you really think so? Queen Aisha's face smiled complicated. Colin doesn't speak anymore. He didn't understand why the Queen told him about this. Queen Aisha seemed to see the alert in Colin's eyes, and sighed. I know, you don't trust me, however, I can see that Miss Vera is actually unwilling to marry Tupu. You should be the true lover of Miss Villa. His Royal Highness, you laughed. Colin dripped water, and he would not leave the handle to the woman. I didn't laugh. Queen Aisha looked serious, and, if it is possible, I even hope that you can take Miss Vera to go high and fly away. Colin smiled, ignoring the king's nonsense. Although he did think so, it was impossible for Queen Aisha to help him take away Villa. According to Colin's understanding of the situation in Union City, this Queen Aisha should be one of the people who most hope to marry Vera. In this way, the Miller family behind her can get the support of the North, thereby achieving the dream of Dove occupying the nest. Therefore, Colin always felt that the Queen told him to test him. Could it be? What did she see? Or did the Duke of St. Hilder say to the Miller family? His Royal Highness, I suddenly remembered that there was still something that could not be done, so I just resigned. Colin was ready to quickly go. Good. After the Colin left, the Queen took off the blood rose that had just been inserted into her hair, shattered it gently, and then opened her palms to let the finely crushed petals fall. If you are still alive, dare to take me away. A breeze blew over and took away Queen Aisha's murmur. This chapter is finished. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Original Vampire. Author, Logo Busroot. Chapter 103. Chapter 103. Heshi. Leaving the garden, Colin was still struggling with Queen Aisha's true intention to say those words. I didn't notice a half-elves who came on the face. The maid's hand was holding a large potted plant, her eyes were just covered, and she didn't notice Colin. It wasn't until the two almost hit that Colin realized that someone was in front of him. He quickly died, but scared the maid. Ah! Feel sorry. No, Master Ventius, it's my fault. The maid obviously recognized Colin, quickly put down the potted plants, and kept apologizing. It's okay. Colin waved his hand and was about to leave. But just a few steps, he seemed to think of something, and then called back the maid. Are you responsible for taking care of that garden? Yes, Master Viscount. Are those blood roses cultivated? No, I don't have this ability. The maid shook her head. This blood rose was bought from the outside. Then you know where the blood roses in the garden bought from. I like those flowers, so I want to buy some. When Faithful Chamber of Commerce, the maid's mouth reported a familiar name, just in the slave market in the west of the city. This Chamber of Commerce can cultivate the best blood roses of the entire Union City. Okay, thanks. You're so polite. The maid Ying gave a gift, and when Colin had no other instructions, he left. Colin looked at the maid to go back, and suddenly fell into thought. This strange Queen Aisha was in connection with the Coast Hill Chamber of Commerce. But is the connection between them really blood roses? Queen Aisha recognizes not to know Sisi? Even Prince Akamoto? Could it be that Prince Akamoto is actually a supporter behind the second prince and one department? But why did the giant demon empire reach into the semi-elf kingdom? What benefits can they get here? Moreover, why is the semi-elf? Nympho. A series of questions rotated in Khalil's mind. He suddenly felt that the situation of Union City is really interesting now. Colin showed an excited smile and turned to his residence. However, although there are so many doubts, he also figured out one thing. That is, why did he meet Prince William at the door of the Kashish Chamber of Commerce? I am afraid that the secret connection between Queen Aisha and the Mosin Chamber of Commerce has been noticed by the Miadwen family. That's why I search for the excuse of tax checking. Colin has told Prince William about the hidden contact between the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce and the Troll. Now it depends on whether the prince can pry out some useful things from Cisco. Thinking all the way, along the way, Colin quickly returned to his residence. Then he noticed that he had a pretty and small semi-elf girl in front of his door. "Telled Cavaliers, this lady," Colin asked in doubt. "Master Viscount, this is Cathy, a female slave who sent Prince William just now, saying it is a gift for you." Colin remembered the stubble. At that time, he thought Prince William was just polite, but he did not expect that a semi-elf female slave was really sent. This semi-elf female slave is about 1.6 meters tall, thin and small, as if she can be run away by a gust of wind. However, she has a delicate and beautiful face, especially those large amber eyes and pointed long ears, which look very cute. She was wearing a simple green dress and an iron ring that symbolizes the identity of slavery on her left foot. She exudes a mysterious and weak temperament, which makes people can't help pity. When Cathy saw Kala looking at herself, she took a step forward and bowed to the ritual. "Master Viscount, His Royal Highness of Prince William let me follow you in the future." The Knight of the Turn also handed over a document in a timely manner. "Adult, this is her slave contract. His Royal Highness has signed a word. As long as you sign your name on it, this female slave is yours." Colin took the contract in a helpless manner and said to Cathy, "Come with me." After entering the house, Colin just sat down on the chair, and Cathy immediately poured a cup of water with his eyes, and then said to Colin, "Adult, please drink water." Colin looked at the flattering Cathy and waved his hand with a smile. "You don't have to be so nervous." Then he pointed to the opposite position and instructed, "Sit." Cathy sat down well, but her waist was straight, and she seemed a little nervous. "How do you become a slave?" Colin knew the appearance of Cathy's appearance. The girl's family should have a good family background, not like a slave child. "My father used to be a businessman. Later, he went bankrupt, so he sold me to repay the debt." Speaking of the past, Cathy couldn't help crying. The old story. I don't know if there is a bit of authenticity. Colin looked at Choo Choo's pitiful Cathy, and asked again, "How long have you been with Prince William?" "I was just sold to Prince William today." "Huh," Colin frowned. "Which business will you have before?" "Winshansa Chamber of Commerce." Sure enough. Colin immediately guessed that the nagging Prince William probably did not discover the real details of the campaign Chamber of Commerce. And this semi-elf female slave may be a gift from Sith to Prince William. I didn't expect to be sent to Colin directly by Prince William. Etc. Cispel Semis female slave to Prince William. Kalinma smashed his chin and suddenly laughed. "Come here." After hearing Colin's order, Cathy immediately stood up and walked in front of Colin. "Come again." Cathy took a step forward again. Colin suddenly stood up and frightened Cathy. The two were close to each other, and Colin deliberately put on up again, and posted his face almost on Cathy's face. Cathy seemed to realize something, and her face was red instantly. The male atmosphere of Colin made her feel messy and her brain was completely blank. Just then, Colin suddenly asked, "What is your last name?" "My surname." Cathy was awake, his eyes widened, and quickly changed his mouth. "Adult, I'm just a slave, how can there be a surname?" "Did you not be a slave before?" Cathy shook his head. "Master, I was just a civilian before." Colin smiled coldly, obviously he didn't believe this rhetoric. The subconscious response of Cathy just now had sold her. Only nobles in this world are allowed to have surnames. If Cathy is really a civilian, she will never subconsciously use the sentence form of my last name. Thinking of the collusion between Sith and Queen Aisha, Colin suddenly felt that this Katya would be the people of the Miller family. If this is the case, the Duke Miller is too ruthless. In order to put an undercover beside the enemy, the family members were sold as slaves. Of course, Colin also guessed another possibility. Kathy may have nothing to do with the Miller family, but Sissy, or a dark son of a family behind Sissy. In fact, this is the real reason why Colin first chose to cheat Kathy. He always feels that Sith is not like a civilian. A semi-elf civilian, even if there is a giant demon supporting the waste, I am afraid that I dare not get involved in the high-level struggle of Union City. Unfortunately, this female slave was obviously not a knight, and Colin could not convert her into a blood, thus prying her mouth. As for the blood slave, it can be transformed, but the kind of walking dead body is obviously impossible to let Colin know her detail. You go down first. Yes, Catherine glanced pitifully, and then ran out like a frightened little deer. Colin looked at the back of the other party, and suddenly felt that his plan seemed to be able to improve it again. Sis, Kathy, Queen Aisha. This is really an interesting clue. This chapter is finished. The Original Vampire. Author, Lugo Busroot. Chapter 104. Chapter 104. The dark Wuun was shrouded over Union City, and from time to time, he also rolled a few rumbling thunder. It is going to rain. The pedestrians on the street were in a hurry, and they wanted to rush home before the rainstorm came. A small tavern in the east also ushered in 2 guests. When the waiter of the tavern see the dress and temperament of the 2 guests, they know that they must be nobles. Then the waist rod bent unconsciously and took them respectfully to a quiet window position. These 2 guests, 1 man and 1 woman. The man was in his early 20s, with bright golden hair and sea blue eyes, especially those eyes, as deep as the sea. Everyone who was watched as seemed to have the illusion of being seen through. The woman's age should be slightly smaller, her face is pretty and has a biography of her hair. She is small in shape, a strong movement, and more noticeable. She is a huge wide sword behind her. The length of the wide sword is almost height as the woman, with a blade on both sides, and the sword body is 10 inches wide. It is engraved with the complicated mysterious arcane array, which can even feel the lightning energy that is scattered from time to time. The huge wide sword forms a sharp contrast with the small woman, and the visual impact is very strong. At the top of the hilt is carved with a steed with wings. If you have studied the Glory Empire Aristocracy, it will immediately recognize that this is the badge of the Saint Plus family of the East Pure Day horse. Boom. After the woman was seated, she leaned the wide sword behind the wall, but when she looked at the depth of the sword tip into the ground and the impact just sent, she knew that the amount of the sword was definitely not light. Brother, why have you patronized the wine everywhere these days? Is it forgotten that we have come to Union City with a mission this time? The man smiled slightly and did not answer his sister immediately. Instead, I took the wine brought by the waiter, poured a drink for myself and my sister, and then toasting, "What is urgent, first taste the wine here." The woman was helpless and had to raise her brother to touch. Raising his hands, the men's cuffs revealed 3 silver striped strokes. This is the mark that the Empire can only have. Coupled with the Pure Day horse badge on the women's wide sword, the identity of the 2 noble guests can guess it. The rulers of the East St Plus family have only 1 count, which is Evan St Plus. Earl Evan is the 2nd son of Duke of San Plus and is the Earl. At a young age, he was attracted to the throne of the Count, and it seemed that the 2nd son of the Duke seemed to be favored. But those who really understand the sidewalks can understand, the fact is exactly the opposite. Just like the northern border, the first heir of the Duke of the East will also accept the position of a false marquis. This title has no corresponding territory. After all, after the Duke's death, the entire East is the marquis. The Duke of the East Duke, the 2nd son of Evan, is basically equivalent to saying, "This count and this territory have been given to you. As for the position of my Duke, don't remember it?" The meaning of fear is clear. With a glass of wine, Evan closed his eyes and tasted a while. Opening her eyes again, she saw her sister's eyes. Earl Evan smiled helplessly and had to say, okay, Anna, do you know why I am not in a hurry to find the people in the semi-elf royal family? Why? Because this is a task destined to fail. Earl Evan poured himself a glass of wine. So, instead of wasting time, it is better to taste the wine of Union City first. Anna frowned and asked puzzled, why do you think this is a task that is destined to fail? Earl Evan closed his eyes, remembered the wine that had just entered the throat, and said lightly. Father sent us to Union City to prevent the semi-elf kingdom from falling completely to the north, but I think this is almost impossible because the Duke of St. Hilda has a way to win. Bill, Anna didn't believe it. What method can ensure that the northern border must be controlled by the semi-elf kingdom? Even if Vera successfully married Prince to Pi, it may not necessarily control Union City. After all, Prince Tup is the second heir, and you have not said that King Half-Elf King is a balanced master, and won't you fall to any side at will? Oh, King Half-Elf is an old fox, but the Duke of St. Hilda is a male lion. Earl Evan opened his eyes and sneered at the corner of his mouth. Do you want to know what the way to win? What? The method is. Earl Evan drank another glass of wine, and then used the cold tone of the cold. Kill Villa. Boom, a lightning pierced the sky outside the window, and then the deafening thunder came. Anna widened her eyes and looked at her brother. I didn't dare to ask. You mean, the Duke of St. Hilda killed his adopted daughter, and he would be able to get the control of the semi-elf kingdom? That's right. Earl Evan's eyes glowed with bloodthirsty light. As long as Wei La died in Union City, there was an excuse for sending troops in the north. I doubt that the invincible Black Army in the north is now ready to go. They killed all the way under Union City, and it was estimated that it would be 10 days. Do you say that by that time, did the Semi-Hills Union Guard dare to keep according to the city? And our father, dare to send troops to the Semi-Elf Kingdom, fight the Black Army on land? Anna was silent. I didn't know if she was scared by her brother's crazy thoughts, or that the answer to the last two questions could not be opened. If the Black Cavalry rushed all the way to the Union City, then according to the glorious tradition of the Semi-Elf clan, they would definitely fall down. What about the Duke of the East? I am afraid that I dare not really send troops to the Semi-Elf Kingdom, and fight hard with the Black Cavalry. Don't look at the chaos in the north border, the army's losses are serious. But as long as the frightened black troops are still there, no one dares to despise the northern border. What's more, the East China has not experienced the war in the East China for hundreds of years. Without experiencing the test of blood and fire, a strong army could not be forged. If it wasn't for the location of the Nushui River, I am afraid that the army in the north would have long driven in and drove the St. family out of Belu City. Anna took a long breath and shook her head and said, this is just your guess. Duke St. Hilda really wants to abandon a daughter for the Semi-Elf Kingdom? It is a daughter, Earl Evan corrected, and, even if it is a biological daughter, for people like the Duke of St. Hilda, what can be abandoned? Anna looked at her brother's eyes and asked seriously, if you are the Duke of St. Hilda, will you do this? Yes, Count Evan replied without hesitation. I don't believe it. Anna shook her head. Although my father and elder brother don't like you, I think you do nothing, there is no bottom line, and you do not talk about the night spirit at all, but I know that you are not such a person. Earl Evan laughed. What kind of person do you know? Relying on intuition, Anna took it for granted. Earl Evan froze, then lowered his head, and a little warm in his eyes, but he laughed at his mouth. My silly sister, you will be deceived sooner or later. Anna snorted lightly, obviously the advice of his brother disagreed, and asked, do we really have no way to stop the North? Earl Evan drank another glass of wine and shook his head and said, actually there are. Anna quickly asked, any solution? This chapter is finished. The Original Vampire. Author, Logo Busroot. Chapter 105. Chapter 105. The sky outside the window was completely shrouded in wuon. The stuffy thunder rang from time to time seemed to warn, urging pedestrians on the street to quickly find a place to hide. In the tavern, Earl Evan looked at his sister's eager eyes and answered leisurely. The way is you immediately step into the Holy Realm. Huh, Anna glanced at her brow, glanced at her brother fiercely. Obviously knowing that he was playing. I am only 4 levels, and I am still early away from the sanctuary. It's not early, Earl sighed. Only 19 is the 4th Order Knight. Hey, you are definitely the most hopeful person in this generation of Santa Polos. That's just hope. But according to you, the Duke of St. Hilda has a must-win control to control the semi-elves kingdom, then we may soon meet the soldiers of the Northern Iron Rider. What should I do? Earl Evan laughed. Okay, don't just kidding you. In fact, I think that the only way to really stop the northern border is to ask the St. Lorenzo family. The imperial royal family, Anna thought. Yes, with us alone, we can't stop the north in any way. Only by asking the royal family for help is the only way to solve it. St. Lorenzo, will it help us? Of course. Earl Evan's face was determined. If the East China borders fell into the hands of the St. Hilda family, hey, the St. Lorenzo family can still suppress the St. Hilda family in hand and hold the 2 realms. But isn't there Sacred League of Legends? Could the St. Hilda family dare? Earl Evan dismissed. Sacred League of League, oh, how many the 7 Paladin Knights who have signed an alliance are now left? What about the St. Simon family and the St. Vorgus family? Anna was silent. The young girl does not seem to adapt to these dark and dirty things. Alliance is fake, only military strength is true. If the St. Hilda family has the strength to sweep the empire, then the Royal Dragon City should change the master. Earl Evan sighed and said again. Therefore, I said that my father was a fool. It is simply white effort to send us to Union City. However, now the semi-elf kingdom has not yet fell into the hands of the North. How can we persuade the St. Lorenzo family to interfere? The real wise will not wait until the end of the matter. Instead, it will foresee the risk of the future at the stage where the crisis is still budding, so as to make plans in advance. Earl Evan pointed to the umbrella around him. I didn't rain when I went out, but I brought an umbrella. He pointed out the window again. Look, it's raining now. Wow. Outside the window, there was a pouring rain, and many passers-by who had not yet rushed home suddenly became a soup chicken. Anna muttered, and felt that her brother scolded her too. Because she didn't bring an umbrella. Then let's write to my father and let him send someone to Yulong City. Do you think my father will listen to my persuasion? Earl Evan didn't take it for granted. Then I'll write, Anna insisted. It's useless. Count Evan sighed. Do you know what the hardest thing in this world is? What? It is to make a proud person admit that he is not as good as others. Earl Evans faced disdain, and our father, without the extent of the mountains and rivers, will not pull down his face to ask for the St. Lorenzo family. Anna pursed her mouth, her face was stubborn. Then we really do nothing, eat, drink and play in Union City. Count Evan's face with a cynical smile on his face. Always do some, otherwise it is not easy to make a mess. Anna looked at her elder brother's tired and lazy look, gritted silver teeth, and hated, Evan, don't forget that you are also sandplus, woolen cloth. Earl Evan didn't speak, and there was a trace of pain on his face. Anna also had no mood to speak, and turned to look at the rain curtain outside the window, and she was so embarrassed. The heavy rain that swept the Union City was fierce, and it was particularly simple. In the evening, Wuun had completely dissipated, showing the fire-red sunset. In the open-air garden of the half-elf palace, the maids were removing the rain covering the rain, allowing flowers and plants to accept the setting sun. Unfortunately, the precious blood roses in the garden, although they escaped the heavy rain, did not escape the destruction of the sword. Hey, ha! A little boy about 10 years old was waving a sharp sword and spoiled the blood rose of Queen Aisha's beloved. Seeing this scene, the maids next to them did not dare to step forward. Because the little boy is the son of Prince William, Charlie Mendon. The old king was holding a cane, watching his grandson raging in the garden with a smile, and he did not intend to stop. His Royal Highness Prince. His Royal Highness Prince. Nympho. At this moment, Prince William suddenly appeared at the door of the garden, scolding at the troubled son. Charlie, that's the blood rose of the queen. The little boy was startled, and quickly threw away the sword in his hand, as if this was like this, the previous damage had nothing to do with him. However, the old king on the side was not happy. I saw him glanced at Prince William and drank angrily. What are you fierce, scared the child? Then, I turned to look at Charlie again, rechanged my smile. Charlie, don't be afraid, but some useless flowers and plants, just play with you. Yeah, Charlie yelled excitedly, picked up the sword on the ground again, and began to destroy those blood roses again. Prince William sighed helplessly. Several unknown maids in Chaoyuan waved their hands and asked them to retreat quickly. Subsequently, he took a few steps and wanted to support the old king. Who knows that the old king shook his hand and stared at, what to help, am I so old? Prince William was speechless for a while, thinking, didn't you want to pretend to be old? However, the prince who was used to the adversity did not dare to refute, but whispered. Father, our hands have found guests from the East China City in Yunyu City, but, these two guests don't seem to be in a hurry to find us. What are they doing? They have almost traveled to the tavern of Yunyu City in the past few days, it seems, to taste all kinds of wine. The old king frowned, and obviously did not expect that the two East messengers were so unreliable, so they had to explain, they don't come to you, then you go to them. Yes. Remember to bring wine. Yes. When Prince William retired obediently, the old king looked at the excited grandson and asked with a smile, Charlie, why do you like to destroy these flowers so much? Charlie stunned and turned back, I don't know, just like watching them falling to the ground. Ha ha ha, the old king seemed to be very happy. Okay, then you continue. Remember, the more beautiful things, the more dangerous. Cut, it's best to cut it all. Okay, it's all chopped. Charlie seemed to get a sacred mission, and the sword in his hand suddenly waved more vigorously. This chapter is finished. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Original Vampire. Author, Lugo Busroot. Chapter 106. Chapter 106. His Royal Highness, the noble guests are inside. Well, don't you bother you rashly. No. Okay, let's go down first. Yes. After the guards left, Prince William stood up and knocked on the door. The door opened, and Prince William immediately showed an elegant and slightly charming smile. But before he introduced himself, Anna beckoned, come in. Prince William immediately understood that his men may have been discovered by the other party, so he quickly walked into the house. Dear Count Evan, Miss Anna, please forgive my liberty visits. Earl Evan didn't get up, just pointed at the chair in front of him, sit. Prince William quickly sat past, as if a good student facing the teacher. Then he put the champagne he brought on the table. Earl, this is a good wine produced by the Meadwen family winery, hoping to meet your taste. Earl Evan's eyes lighted up, and then they showed some smiles. It's not good to wine, you have to taste it, come on, taste it together. To say, go to get the glass immediately. Prince William quickly opened the bottle and poured 3 cups. Earl Evan raised a cup, shaking a few times with an elegant gesture, and then smelling it under his nose, and the color of enjoyment immediately appeared on his face. Promise, it's really good. Prince William exposed, it is our honor to make Lord Earl like it. Earl Evan smiled, took a sip, and taste it carefully. The room is temporarily quiet. Prince William did not dare to disturb Earl Evan's wine, and Anna on the other side had quickly finished drinking a glass, and was looking at Prince Half-Elves with curious eyes. As Prince William was examined by Anna, Earl seemed to have finally tasting and said with a smile, "Prince William, what's the matter with your home? Prince William's heart is slandering, shouldn't you come to us? Why do you ask me what is?" But he only dared to think about it, and he would definitely not say that. That's it. My guards found that 2 distinguished guests came away, so as the owner of Union City, naturally it should be entertaining. "Oh, it's just to entertain us," Earl Evan laughed a little funny. "I thought you came for a wedding daughter in the north." Prince William was suffocated immediately, and the way of speaking by Earl Evan was not blushing. Seeing the performance of Prince William, Earl Evan knew that this guy was really an honest person, so he no longer teased him, and instead said seriously, "Prince William, Prince Tup asked to marry Miss Villa, shouldn't your father arrange it?" "Of course not, that's all young and vigorous, and he claimed himself." Prince William quickly explained, "I hope you can understand, don't blame the Modin family, but, this is the end of this, and his father is difficult to do if you refuse this marriage directly. I am afraid that the Duke of St. Hilda will be offended." "But this incident made my father very angry." Earl Evan shook his head. Prince William suddenly said uneasily, "Also, please help us explain in front of the Duke of St. Plus." "I am also very angry," Earl Ern said with a look of pretending. "Are you the Medwin family always advertised as neutral? Why dare to marry the northern border this time, or the daughter of the Duke? Skill the chips in your hand? Ha, you have bet directly." I, Prince William was speechless for a while. "You should not want to see your brother marry Vera, so you can get the support of the Duke of the North." "When, of course, don't want," Prince William said honestly. "I have a way to help you destroy this marriage." Prince William's eyes brightened and asked quickly, "Please say." "Of course, it is not appropriate to reject this marriage directly, but if Miss Vera's famous festivals are dirty, then your Medwin family naturally has a suitable excuse to cancel this wedding in order to maintain the face of the semi-elf royal family." "Famous festivals?" Yes. Earl Evan poured himself a cup of champagne and said, "Have you understood the chaos before the North?" "I have understood some." "Then you should know that the Black Army plays a decisive role in it. However, from the results of the post-reward, there is a person outside the Black Cavalry system, which is quite profitable." Prince William immediately thought of a person. "You mean, the sentimental ambassador of the North Angle line?" "That's right." "Are you curious? How could the son of the former Baron suddenly be appreciated by the Duke of St. Hilda? Not only was promoted to the Viscount, but even the sealed territory was much larger than the average Dunners. Moreover, the Duke of St. Hilda even gave him the Blade of Judgment." Prince William nodded again and again. "It's really strange." Earl Evan put down the wine glass and said in a mysterious tone, "As far as I understand, the Angle Viscount had met Vera, who returned from the East in the East clothes." "That's right." Prince William thought about it, and quickly added, "At the banquet of the Lion Roar, the Viscount Angel also asked the Duke of the North to marry Miss Villa, but the Duke finally chose to marry Vera. To marry Vera Givtup." Earl Evan made a fingers and said firmly, "So, I dare to be sure, the Angle Viscount is Vera's beloved, so it was appreciated by the Duke. However, I am afraid that there were some changes. The Duke temporarily changed his thoughts, and then married Vera to the Elf Kingdom." "Then you mean? Isn't this beautiful and regrettable love story that people like it? You only need to send someone to compile the previous past in the past, fill in some fascinating fragments, and let yin wandering poets sang in Union City." Meow. Prince William nodded again and again, as if he had got some magical tricks, and kept gratitude. Anna frowned straight, and she didn't expect her brother to give such an idea. And this Prince William didn't know if it was stupid, and even felt that it was a wonderful plan. Earl Evan could not stand the brainless touting of Prince William, and sent him away without saying a few words. Closing the door, Anna looked back at her brother with disdain. "This is your wonderful plan, it's a bit. Do it, vulgar, still do you think it is futile at all?" Earl Evan didn't care about his sister's eyes, and poured himself a glass of wine and tasted carefully. Anna leaned his lips and wondered, "Didn't you say that the Duke of St. Hilda had a must-win way? Even if your strategy really prevented Vera unable to marry the semi-elf royal family, what is the use?" Earl Evan's hand, "I have to do something, otherwise I can't get a difference after I go back. By the way, we also test the level of our allies and opponents. I do know what level of the opponent is at present, but the allies. Hey, it seems really stupid. I am more convinced now that the north border is determined this time. So you give Prince William's idea, just to make a difference with your father. Otherwise," Earl Evan shrugged, "Duke St. Hilda wants to kill his daughter, do we still have a way to stop? Maybe the Angeli Viscount was the person who sent this task to the Duke of the North. Hey, really interesting. If the love and hatred can be compiled into a story, it will be able to sing the entire continent." Anna's eyes widened. N.A. Angleline is really willing to kill her beloved. Why not? If he was he would be faithfully executed the Duke's order. Maybe he would be promoted to the Count after returning, haha. "Brother," Anna took the wine glass in the hands of Earl Evan, rebuked, "you can't always use this dark psychology to speculate everyone." Earl Evan shook his head helplessly and sighed. "Stupid sister, this world is much darker than you imagine." This chapter is finished. The Original Vampire. Author, Logo Busroot. Chapter 107. Chapter 107. With the days when Prince Tup and Miss Willow married, the entire Union City was filled with a festive atmosphere. The daughter of the Duke of the North. Even if she is a daughter, she is also the highest status daughter who has married the royal family of Modin. All the semi-elf people feel honored and honored. However, this kind of festive atmosphere suddenly mixed with some bad noise. Some stories about Miss Willa and Angle Viscounts quietly spread in Union City. Moreover, these stories have eyes and eyes, unlike rudeness. As a result, Union City's public opinion gradually began to turn. Under the help of some careless people, the semi-elf people are no longer looking forward to Miss Villa marry into the royal family as they were initially. Even began to feel that Prince Tup should not marry a well-known noblewoman. People in this world also value women's festivals. After all, without parent-child appraisal technology, how to ensure that your offspring is really his own blood? Therefore, for the purity of the bloodline, the nobles generally require the bride who marry in. This is the simplest guarantee method, although it is not necessarily effective. In fact, many aristocrats have a body test before marriage. However, this program is generally aimed at women who are in a weak position. If Prince Tup marries Wyra as an obvious high marriage, the Modin family obviously dare not perform the test of Vera. Because this program is too rude. In the case of discovering their daughters unmarried first, in order to prevent this child from being an illegitimate child who was spurred, he even deliberately found a subordinate noble as a pick-up man, and then asked not to test it. For the half-elf royal family, they are absolutely unwilling to contain the notoriousness. But I really have to make them check Villa, and it is estimated that they have no such courage. However, with the gradual fermentation of rumors, and after intensifying, the Modin family began to control the situation. Even many semi-elf aristocrats began to clearly demand that they were inspected Vera. These semi-elf aristocracy also found a reasons that are very grandness. The request to be verified is not to question the innocence of Miss Villa. On the contrary, it is precisely to maintain the reputation of Miss Vera and completely shatter these rumors of outdoor outburst. Nympho. Half-elf palace, Colin's residence. The Duke of Miller saw that Colin looked at the rumors he had collected, and it was a little speechless. Colin really looked at it. He found that these rumors are true and false, and they seem to be compiled. For example, they have rode a horse. For example, Khalil had desperately died of Villa to block spear. For another example, after the two met in Mirror Lake, they accompanied them all the way and felt good at each other. He even said that this time Vera was married to the semi-elf kingdom. Colin deliberately asked the Duke to appoint him as a sender, and wanted to send his beloved woman to a foreign country in person. In short, if it wasn't for the actor itself, I am afraid that he would really believe in such a beautiful love story. Moreover, these rumors also emphasized that he and Vera had got along many times. Although they did not say clearly, the words were constantly implying that the two had developed a super friendship relationship. Well, this is true. Colin touched his chin and suddenly laughed. Seeing Colin even laughed, the Duke Miller couldn't help but go out. Master Viscount, this incident has spread throughout the city now, and even many semi-elf people have begun to organize marches, asking Miss Villa to verify to be innocent. Then check, Colin replied casually. As if he and Villa are really clear. The Duke Miller, obviously stunned, then blinked and asked with some hesitant, "Are you sure?" "Of course," Colin said loudly. "These questioning Miss Villa's innocent remarks are all slander of nothing. You can rest assured to arrange your body test procedures as long as the results come out. These rumors will naturally not attack." In fact, Colin didn't care about these rumors. It even felt that this was really a poor strategy. If the Meadwin family really dares to testify verade and concludes that she is not innocent, then Colin has to admire the courage of the other party. Because, this is simply playing the face of the St. Hilda family. Colin feels that this is probably the strategy of the stupid Prince William. In order to prevent his brother from marrying Vera, this means of Prince William are really hard to say. However, Colin also thought of another possibility: the conspiracy of the East. The rumors are likely to be released by the side of the East, in order to force the Meadwen family to test the Vera, thereby offending the St. Hilda family. In this way, the kingdom of Half-Elf can only ask for help from the East. Of course, Colin does not care much no matter what the facts are. In fact, he couldn't pass the test, and then the wedding was yellow. As for whether Vera was innocent, Colin had verified himself. Can he not know? However, when Khalil wondered how to follow the trend, when the marriage was destroyed, I heard the Duke Miller spoke again. "Master Viscount, please rest assured, I will arrange a suitable person to verify, and it will definitely not let Miss Villa be unlikely." When the Duke Miller saw Colin's calm performance, he determined that he and Villa were innocent. However, the Duke Miller is still not assured. After all, who knows whether Vera has any secret lover before Colin? The Duke of Miller did not dare to take it lightly. Colin also heard the secret meaning of the other person from the expression and tone of Miller, and suddenly smiled secretly in his heart. This old guy is still going to do dark box operations. However, this is indeed the best means to deal with rumors. As long as the result of Vera and control the results of the body, the rumors naturally do not attack. Well, this candidate for Vera is essential. Who are you going to let Miss Vera check? Duke Miller smiled with confidence. "Please rest assured that we already have the most suitable candidate with her status and status. We will never humiliate Miss Villa." "Who?" "Queen Aisha." Colin stunned and immediately understood why Duke Miller said she was the best candidate. Whether Miss Villa is innocent, it is not important. As long as Queen Aisha says she is innocent, she is naturally innocent. What would Queen Aisha say? Do you want to ask? Who else is more than Queen Aisha more hopes to see Prince to marry Vera smoothly? Moreover, there is another benefit of King Aisha's queen. That is, don't worry about Prince William's objections to this candidate. If you choose other people, Prince William will definitely worry about the Duke Miller's dark box operation, and maybe even replacement to check. But Queen Aisha's words, it is definitely okay. In terms of identity and status, is it more suitable for the person who is more suitable for Queen Aisha to perform a person who tests Miss Villa? The Duke Miller felt that such a response was certain, and hurriedly resigned with Colin, so he ran to prepare for the test procedure. Colin looked at the back of the other party, and suddenly remembered the beautiful queen in the blood rose flowers. And the words she said at the time came. Shaking his head, Colin put the shadow from his head. This time, he should have passed the field, and Colin was not ready to change his plan for it. Now, he is waiting for the army of the Angra family to arrive in Union City. When calculating time, they are almost here. And the Pollen's plan can almost start. There is another chapter later. This chapter is finished. The Original Vampire. Author, Logo Busroot. Chapter 108. Chapter 108. The test procedure is held for 3 days before the wedding. The candidate for Miss Villa was in the end, and eventually it was Queen Aisha. Although the King and Prince William were not satisfied with this candidate, they could not find more suitable candidates. The location is naturally selected in the Queen's Palace, which is private enough and solemn enough. When Collins led Vera into here, it was found that the senior management of the semi-elf kingdom had already arrived. In the center of the palace, an oval bed is placed with dark purple silk on it neatly. The pillow is a faint beige, and the pattern of the rose flower is embroidered on it, which looks dignified and elegant. The bed is surrounded by opaque curtains, which is estimated to be prepared for today's body inspection. Colin was very doubtful that after the meeting, the Queen Aisha would not need to undress in the inside, so she directly announced her innocence. No need so many people. Villa looked at the semi-elf aristocrats around the palace, frowned, a little speechless. Okay, let's all leave, let His Royal Highness be inspecting Miss Vera alone. His Majesty, what do you see? The Duke Miller asked to the sleeping old king. The old king opened her sleepy eyes, and it seemed to react, and she nodded slowly. Okay, just do what you say. I want to stay, the Turd Cavaliers said immediately. The St. Hilda family knight is almost inseparable from Villa. Of course, except the knight of Hongfeng Manor. The Duke Miller stunned, and then said, okay, then trouble the Cavaliers of Turd. Then he looked at Prince Tupi again, His Royal Highness, or you stay, entertain the guests. Prince Tup naturally does not refuse. Okay. Then I will stay, Colin said immediately. Everyone's eyes were a little strange for a while, but they didn't say much. Prince William seemed to want to stay, but he didn't have a good excuse. After all, he was not like the responsibility of protecting Vera's safety like Colin and Turd. Essence. As a result, he had to help the old king, and walked out with the remaining semi-elf nobles. In Prince William's opinion, this time the test process is a passing play. Does Queen Aisha say that Vera is unclear? Earl Evan's strategy was easily resolved. Prince William was surprised at this time. Earl Evan's strategy was a bit perfunctory. After the unrelated everyone left the palace one after another, Queen Aisha greeted Vera and others in the seat. Come, drink a glass of tea first, and relax. Thank you, His Royal Highness. Colin also sat down by the round table, drinking the flower tea brewed by Queen Aisha himself, and looked at the Queen's palace. The overall layout of the palace did not deliberately pursue luxury, but instead a fresh and elegant style. In addition to the central bed, sandalwood wardrobes were set up in the wall, and a dressing table was placed where the window leaned against the window. In addition to jewelry boxes and makeup supplies on the table, a pot of blood roses are also placed. His Royal Highness, the blood rose is really beautiful. Vera also saw the pot of flowers, and couldn't help but admire it. Indeed, although Colin has seen a lot of blood roses in the Hyacknicals Chamber of Commerce and the Royal Garden, it is obviously not as good as the plant in front of him. The blooming gesture, the beautiful color, as if a burning flame, consumed his life, Just left a touch of gorgeous in this world. Yeah, it's so beautiful, Queen Aisha sighed. She walked slowly to the window, reached out and stroked the blooming blood rose, with a proud look on her face. This flower was cultivated by I personally. You are so amazing, Villa couldn't help saying emotion. This flower is the mother's heart. Prince Tup also laughed. My naughty little nephew Charlie accidentally took a pet petal once, but was cracked by her mother, lying on the bed a whole wole 10 days. After listening to Queen Aisha, she smiled and shook her head and said, therefore, the boy still hated me a few days ago, the rose flowers in the garden were spoiled. Prince Tup hurriedly said, Mother, rest assured, I will go to the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce tomorrow, and let the Sith send you some blood roses again. Queen Aisha shook her head, no need. Prince Tup suddenly felt doubtful. As soon as he wanted to ask why, he heard the Queen and said, do you know why this blood rose is so gorgeous? Why? Vera said curiously. Colin thought of the blood rose cultivation method that Queen Aisha told him before, and smiled and said, will it be poured out of the blood of the night? Queen Aisha glanced with the charming big eyes and laughed, yes, and it's not just blood. Colin frowned, and suddenly felt that Queen Aisha's status seemed to be wrong today. Not only blood, what else? Queen Aisha leaned against the edge of the window, and the bright sunshine came in from the window, covering her a layer of fascinating halo. She wore a silver low-cut skirt today, showing her uneven Meoman curve. The face is also obviously carefully dressed, the pink cheeks and tender red lips, and the gorgeous blood roses contrast with each other, exuding the beautiful beauty. Hearing the problem of Colin, Queen Aisha smiled thousands of styles. Also, skull. What? The remaining 4 in the room were startled by the answer. Prince Tupi said embarrassedly and said, Mother, what are you talking about? Queen Aisha smiled brightly, and the whole palace seemed to be illuminated by such a bright smile. I'm not talking nonsense. The weirdness in Colin's heart is getting stronger and stronger. The state of this queen in front of me is very wrong. Vera seemed to realize something, and quickly shifted the topic, His Royal Highness, or let's start to verify, let others wait for too long outside. Queen Aisha did not move, and still stroking the petals of the blood rose, her tone became a little elusive. I don't have nonsense. If you don't believe it, you can smash the flower pot and see if there is a one inside. Skull. Mother, Prince Tup stood up sharply, as if he wanted to stop the queen who was nonsense. But as soon as he got up, he shaken for a while, as if it was about to fall to the ground in the next second. When the cavaliers saw Prince Tup's status, he was frightened and cold, and immediately stood up, touched the sword around his waist, and reminded him at the same time. T is wrong. Colin blinked and realized that the situation was wrong. However, he was not to panic. He has already experimented that he is immune to toxic. Moreover, he hasn't felt any discomfort until now. Well, Prince Tup over there had been planted to the ground. Subsequently, the turd cavaliers did not last long, and they swayed to the ground. And Vera has already been lying on the table, not saving personnel. Faced with such a situation, Colin sighed secretly, and quickly closed his eyes, leaning back. Well. Falling to the ground. This chapter is finished. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Original Vampire. Author, Lugo Busroot. Chapter 109. Chapter 109. Lying on the cold marble ground, Colin quietly narrowed his eyes and peeked out. Then he discovered that Queen Aisha looked at the drawer of the dressing table indifferently and took it out of it. Dagger. What do she do? Colin rolled up the stormy waves, and he did not expect the situation in front of him. I thought it would be a plain test procedure. Queen Aisha would not open Vera's skirt, and directly announced her innocence. Then, the wedding photo is used as usual. He can also start implementing his own plan. But now, the script is completely messy. Seeing that Queen Aisha was approaching Vera step by step, and at the same time raised the dagger in her hand, it seemed to be stabbing. She wants to kill Vera. But why? Colin couldn't figure it out. But this did not prevent him from rising from the ground immediately, and fell to the ground without any precaution. She seized the dagger in the hands of the queen in one hand and covered her mouth with one hand to prevent her from screaming. Who instructed you to do so? Colin stared at Queen Aisha's eyes coldly. Queen Aisha's eyes flashed obviously, apparently why it was strange why Colin didn't faint. But soon, this silk was replaced by calm. No, not calm. It's a dead silence. As if a person who came to the end, he no longer attached to everything about the world. Colin suddenly realized that he covered Queen Aisha's hand wet. He thought it was saliva, but took a closer look, but found that a ray of blood is exuding from his fingers. Are you poisoned yourself? Colin asked in surprise. But after thinking about it, he doubted again. No, you didn't drink tea at all. Blood continued to emerge from Queen Aisha's mouth. Colin no longer had to cover the other's mouth anymore, because the queen had a less air in air, and she couldn't say anything. She, just, unconscious, no death, Queen Aisha said intermittently, but still reminded Colin, I failed, you, take her, go. Tell me, who made you do so? Colin only cared about the main envoys behind the scenes. Queen Aisha smiled with a stern smile, without answering the question of Colin's, but turned to look at the blood rose. Then, where, there is me, real, love people, the skull. Did the Duke Miller let you do so? Colin didn't care about any dogs at all, is it the Siths of the Capital Chamber of Commerce? However, Queen Aisha had closed her eyes. Damn, don't die, Colin was depressed. If Queen Aisha died like this, how can he explain later? And who is behind the scene of this weird incident? Who wants to kill Vera? And let Queen Aisha assassinate in this way of changing his life? Who has this ability? Colin looked at Queen Aisha, who had completely lost his movement, and suddenly remembered that Sith had told him that the queen was also a knight. Although the level is not high, it is also a knight. So, Colin no longer hesitated, and immediately bit into the white and slender neck of Queen Aisha. Nympho. As the bloody smoke screen gradually dissipated, Colin also raised his head from Queen Aisha. His face was still pale. Try Queen Aisha's breath and breathing. Colin let go of his heart. It seems that the first ritual was successful. After becoming a blood-like queen, Queen Aisha has gained immune toxic ability. This will not die so that Colin has the opportunity to learn from her mouth who is the main ambassador behind the scenes. Seeing Queen Aisha's signs of waking up for a while, Colin temporarily suppressed countless questions in his heart, stood up, and walked to the Third Knight. Colin remembers that the St. Hilda family knight is the Fourth Order. Colin opened the wrist of the Third Cavaliers and slowly flowed into the teacup. At this moment, Colin suddenly discovered a fact that surprised him extremely. He did not have a settlement. Shouldn't it be reduced after the first embrace? Colin feels his body again. Although it is still weak, it is still the Third Order. No. Colin suddenly thought of a possibility. When he first held the Cavaliers of Charles, his level was lower than Shire. And the Queen Aisha, the Cavaliers' level is obviously lower than Colin. Therefore, is it that the first low-level knight will not be reduced? Colin was a little excited about this discovery. In this way, as long as his knight level is raised, you don't have to worry about the reduction of the order every time you first embrace. He also thought that if the level of the other party was the same as him, would it be reduced? Maybe further experiments. Seeing that the blood of the Turd Cavaliers gradually filled the teacup, Colin immediately lifted it to his mouth. Guru, Guru. Feeling the gradually hot body, Colin closed his eyes comfortably. But just when Colin enjoyed the pleasure brought by the improvement of strength, Prince William's voice suddenly came from the outside. Miss Willa, His Royal Highness, are you over? Colin was startled, thinking about how to pass this guy away, and saw that Queen Aisha had woke up leisurely. There seemed to be a little confused in her eyes. Obviously she had taken high toxic in advance. Why is she alive? She turned her head to look at Colin, and then, an instinct from the depths of blood made her unable to help her obedient thoughts. Let him go, Colin tried to order to Queen Aisha. Queen Aisha nodded, and said with a loud voice, I and Miss Villa are tasting tea, please wait for a while. Prince William did not doubt him, and quickly replied, okay, don't worry, no one will disturb your yaxing. After passing the Prince William, Queen Aisha turned to look at Colin and asked in confusion, why didn't you die? Colin put away the water sack in a whole time, came to Queen Aisha, and looked at the other side with unlimited piety and respect on his face. He asked indifferently, have you heard of blood angels? Nympho. Outside the temple, Prince William told Queen Aisha's words. The old king squinted his eyes and said weakly, in this case, I will go back and rest first. You are waiting here, and you will tell me when the results come out. The remaining semi-elf aristocracy nodded naturally. After the old king was supported by the maid, the semi-elf female slave who probed the brain suddenly walked in front of the temple. Yes, it's you, come here, Duke Miller yelled. The female slave came over. Who's a female slave? What do you run around? No one has taught you rules. Adult, I am the female slave of Angle Vessel, Kathy carefully replied. The Duke Miller wanted to interrupt her legs who did not understand the rules, but heard the Viscount Angeli stopped. At this time, Prince William also recognized Kathy and nodded, yes, she is a gift I gave to Angle. She also didn't understand the rules not long before entering the palace. The Duke of Miller hummed coldly and rebuked, go down, let me see you running around in the palace in the future and interrupt your legs. Yes, Kathy was so scared that she turned away quickly. After getting out of the distance, Kathy carefully turned her head and looked at the Queen Palace behind her quietly. But then, she pressed the doubts and accelerated the pace of departure. This chapter is finished. The Original Vampire. Author, Logo Busroot. Chapter 110. Chapter 110 Story. The bright sunshine came in from the window, sprinkled on the standing Colin and Queen Aisha who was kneeling. Looking at it from a distance, it seems like a pilgrimage oil painting. Queen Aisha looked up slightly, looking up at the man who had just given herself a newborn man in front of him. My heart is full of respect and admiration. Although she has never heard of the name of Blood Angel Dracula, she is convinced of Colin's words. After all, this is the person who has just pulled back from the abyss of death. In addition to the angel apostles, who can have such great power. The suppression of the blood from the blood vessels from the blood was also mistaken for the sacred aura that Queen Aisha thought it was the choice. So, Aisha Miller, are you willing to be my dependents and contribute to the mysterious mission of Blood Angel? I am willing, Queen Alice said with piety. Seeing this, Colin couldn't help but sigh. Religious brainwashing ability is too powerful. He didn't feel that he taught the wool like this, and it was wrong to dig the corner of the main wall of glory. At least before his strength, he will continue to control the blood in this way before the church. However, he believes that one day, he does not have to use the so-called blood angels, the so-called Lord's choice, and let the real name of the blood race present in the world. Of course, before that, he still needed low-key development. Very good, Colin reached out and tapped his forehead at Queen Aisha, as if to complete a certain inheritance ritual. I accept your loyalty in the name of glorious and blood angels, and give you the grace of blood. I hope don't live up to this glory. Queen Aisha closed her eyes, as if bathing in some kind of sacred glory, with piety and enthusiasm. After the other party calmed down, Colin retracted his fingers and asked, "Tell me, who asked you to assassinate Vera?" Queen Aisha opened her eyes without hesitation. "It's Sith. Siths of the Hyacroxenes, a chamber of commerce." Yes. This answer was actually not unexpected to Colin, and he had not realized that there was some connection between the Queen and Sith. But he wondered, why did Sith assassinate Vera? What makes him even more unreasonable is why Queen Aisha followed the order of a little businessman. Looking at Queen Aisha's bright face, Colin asked his doubts. "Master of God, my purpose of killing Vera is to retaliate against the Moden and Miller family." Hearing this, Colin suddenly thought of what he thought of, raised his hand to the red blood rose of the window by the window, and asked, "Because of a head buried there?" "Yes, there are the heads of my beloved one." Colin probably guessed that Queen Aisha hated the Emperor Moden family and the Miller family, and nodded. "Tell me your story." Yes, Queen Aisha had a sorrow in his eyes. "Before marrying into the semi-elf royal family, I had a real beloved person. He was born in a small noble home of Union City. Later, his family fell, and he became a wandering knight. He was accepted by his father and became the knight of the Miller family. After learning that we fell in love, my father was angry. How could he allow his daughter to marry a disappointed knight? Therefore, my father drove him away and fell for me, a more powerful husband. Yes, that is, Her Majesty's semi-elf king. Of course, I was unwilling to marry an old man in his 70-year-old, and he began to cry and not to eat or drink to protest. However, I did not expect that my father had killed my lover directly, sent his head to me, and warned me if he didn't marry into the royal family, he would cut off my head." Speaking of which, Queen Aisha's breathing became rapid, her chest was violent, and her eyes were full of fear and hatred. After a while, she continued, "Under the persecution of my father, I had to marry the old king. But since then, I have only unforgettable hatred to him. In order to please the king and for his own power, he treats his biological daughter like this. On the day I got married, I vowed secretly that he had to pay him a price. I buried my lover's head in the flower pot of the blood rose, let him accompany me day and night, reminding me not to forget this hatred." Hearing this, Colin couldn't help but get cold in his heart. This woman is really cruel. Put your lover's head beside him. This matter will be on the ordinary people. I'm afraid I will have nightmares all night. When I was looking for a chance to revenge, a businessman found me. That's right, it is the Siths of the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. I know him through the blood rose. They can cultivate the best blood roses of Union City, so they have become the exclusive supplier of the royal garden, often entering and leaving the palace. He didn't know how to know my story, and hinted that he could help me. Of course, I would not easily believe in a businessman, until he showed me a thing." "What?" "The badge of the Syvarif family." Syvarif, Colin felt that he seemed to have heard this family. Queen Aisha patiently explained, "The Syvarif family is the former semi-elf royal family, but in a coup in more than 300 years, the Moderwin family was driven off the throne." Colin nodded, and then understood. His guess was right before, the guy Sis was really a noble. Moreover, it is still the former elf royal family. In this way, the semi-elf female slave Cyrus given to herself by Prince William, I am afraid that she is also surnamed Syvarif. Queen Aisha continued to tell, "After seeing the badge of the Syvarif family, I was convinced that Sith can trust because we are all revenge people. So, after Miss Villa came to Union City, Sis found me again and asked me to find a chance to kill Vera." Colin also guessed the purpose of Sith at this time, and blurted out, "He wants to make the Medwin family bear the anger in the north." Yes, Queen Aisha nodded. Sis said that as long as Wyra was let Vera die in the palace, the Modinian family was complete, and the Miller family was the same, burning into ashes in the anger. When I heard this, Colin also sneered and added, as the descendants of the former Semito royal family in the said elf royal family, he can take the opportunity to rise again and even ascend the throne. I don't care. Even if Sisi appeared on the throne, it was just a puppet when the Northern Army entered Union City. The real controller of the city must be. When Colin said here, he suddenly stunned. Because he suddenly thought of a possibility. He originally thought that the main envoy behind the assassination was Sisi Siveri. But now, he thinks there may be another person. As the so-called, the big is suspicious. If Vera was really assassinated and died, who would be the biggest prophet? Is Sith? Even if he boarded the throne, he was just a puppet. And those who can really take this opportunity to control the semi-elf kingdom are Duke Saint Hilda. This chapter is finished.